Good afternoon guys, Dark Purple Shadow here. It's coming to the end of 2024 and what I wanted to do was really pitch together a battle between AMD and NVIDIA and really figure out who's won the battle this year for graphics card supremacy, who's really cornered the consumer market. Now I'm going to caveat this by saying fanboyism is silly and should be left in the 2000s. Nobody should be buying blindly. You should be going for what suits you as a consumer better. If you've got a lot of money, get what you want, and if you don't have a lot of money, get what you can, but don't be fooled. We are second-class citizens in this market now. The enterprise users building massive data centers are buying up everything and they dominate the shareholders' agendas. Nobody cares about us even though we built this industry up brick by brick. We are just pawns in their game of increasing stock prices. Now, let's go into the conversation. What's been released this year? NVIDIA came out strong with the 4080 Super, 4070 Ti Super, and the other Super, the 4070. The Supers all improved on their predecessors, but ultimately there weren't really massive improvements. You got better price to performance because actually a lot of them were slightly cheaper. I think the 4080 Super was slightly cheaper than the 4080 at retail price, and ultimately that's the reason why these offerings were so much more superior than what came before. Now when you have AMD in the ring, you have the 7600 XT, a good card, budget friendly, good option for 1080p gaming, and then maybe even some lower end 1440p gaming. You also have the 7800 XT, and I believe this year also marked the wide adoption of the 7900 GRE in European and American markets. Now this video I won't be talking about Intel, but they've been doing some good stuff as well behind the scenes, especially in the integrated GPU market. But who cares? This is about the big boys, NVIDIA versus AMD. Let's go. Now I've got a few categories I'm going to be deciding on who the winner is. The first category is the ultimate out and out performance leader. This is the heavyweight champion of the division, and honestly we all know who's going to win this, but I'll get to that later. The second point is value and pricing. The third point I'm going to talk about is gaming features. The fourth one is around the software ecosystem. This is the drivers and the other offerings you get with the graphics card you purchase. Number 5 is purely around budget. This isn't price to performance. This is about people who only have a couple £100 or dollars to spend and what they can get for the price they can pay. And let's start by talking about the first category. Let's start off with section 1. When it comes to the performance leader, there's only one name you need to remember. That's 4090. The RTX 4090 remains the undisputed king of high-end heavyweight performance, excelling in everything the best money can buy when it comes to consumer grade GPUs. In fact, I believe a lot of the purchases of these weren't even consumers. They were the poverty businesses who can't afford the H100s. So a couple of these poverty businesses ended up buying tens of 4090s and built little data centers to do weather reporting or whatnot. But when it comes to it, AMD just can't compete. The 7900 XTX is probably more akin to the 4080 Super. It's not on the same level as the 4090, and that's fine because ultimately the 4090 is in a class of its own. This is a definite win for NVIDIA. If you've got unlimited money and you want the best of the best, the 4090 is the way to go. The only negative when it comes to the 4090, in my opinion, is the sheer size of the GPU, the graphics card that is. But if you have the wherewithal and the money to purchase this sort of a unit, you know how to build a system around it. So let's quickly move on to value and pricing. This is an interesting point. Value and pricing is a difficult one. Neither graphics card company really holds the title here. They all offer different things. Value and pricing has been something nobody's really caring about recently. I blame the shareholders and the AI boom really affecting the gamers, because ultimately you're competing against businesses now, not just other gamers. And these companies have massive ways of generating revenue without us. They don't need us, we need them. And when it comes to it, AMD does give you cheaper options at every price point. However, none of them are actually just straight up superior. You're always losing out on something. If that's ray tracing performance or DLSS at the lower end, you are losing out. In this kind of fight, there are certain cards which kind of come out stronger than the others. 7800 XT, for example, is a really good contender. Compared to the Super, it is superior to buy in my opinion, especially since you're not getting much more than 12 gigabytes of VRAM on the 4070 Super. So in that sense, you're saving £100, $100 or whatever. Maybe go AMD, but if you're somebody who's looking for price to performance, you're gonna put stuff on the table when you buy AMD, and it's not really a black and white victory for AMD in my opinion. So for that reason, for this category, I'd have to give it a tie. AMD could win if they wanted to, but they're choosing to just undercut NVIDIA, and for that reason, I have to say it's a tie. Value and performance, it's not a win for either graphics card company. In fact, I'd say both of them lose with this one. Point 3, gaming features. Now, this one's a tricky one. Deep down in my heart, I want AMD to win this battle. I'm quite biased. This is biased. FSR, I think, is amazing. Being open source, it works really well. It allows my GTX 1080, which is an NVIDIA card, to play some of the newer games at an acceptable level. In fact, Cyberpunk runs at 1440p above 60 frames most of the time. However, and this is a big however, the problem is FSR on paper is just worse than what NVIDIA is offering with DLSS, and NVIDIA's DLSS is very, very helpful. Unfortunately, it's only available on the newest kind of engine of cards, the RTX 4000 series. Beyond that, there's also the argument around ray tracing. Ray tracing is becoming more and more prevalent in video games. It's not always something you can turn off, and you will take a performance hit if you're using ray tracing on an AMD GPU, simply because there's no hardware side ray tracing processing. So for that reason, unfortunately, the dark side has won here, and that's NVIDIA. So I'll have to give this one to NVIDIA. Now it comes to section 4 around the software ecosystem, and I'm not really qualified to really talk about this. I'm really just going on what I know and what I understand, and the comments I've seen on places like Reddit, you know, YouTube, forums, etc., about how people feel around AMD, and everything I've seen points to AMD software drivers, even how things are optimized, how quickly they update things, being worse. I also know about the fact that a lot of older AMD GPUs, especially the AMD previous kind of front runners such as the RX 480, RX 580, old GPUs now are being unsupported going forwards, and that's a really big issue for me. With my GTX 1080 being of a similar age, I'm getting regular updates from NVIDIA. I also have just noticed that they've updated their NVIDIA GeForce experience very recently, I think a couple of days ago, and it looks brilliant. NVIDIA Shadow Play has been amazing. A lot of the footage I take when I'm playing games, etc., comes from that software. I don't know if AMD has an equivalent, I'm sure they do, but from what I've seen, it's very biased, and this is my opinion, this video. It's not kind of set in stone. I think NVIDIA has to win this. They're just more mature when it comes to this area of gaming and graphics card optimization. So for that reason, when it comes to the software ecosystem, it has to be a somewhat clear win for NVIDIA, and you can tell me if you disagree and tell me why, but for me, NVIDIA wins this in 2024. I hope it changes. Now, when it comes to budget choices, this is section 5, budget choices. I'm going to be quite clear what budget choices mean. Budget choices is not price to performance. Budget choices is you only have $300 or you only have £300 to £400. What can you get to maximize the money you're spending? There is only one winner here, and it is not the RTX series, it's not the 4060, it's not even the older 3060s. It has to be AMD's offerings, especially around the RX 7600. That GPU is really good value for money. Even the 7600 XT, you're talking about good high-end, well not high-end, well mid-end gaming performance at 1080p. You're getting good settings, you're getting good usage and value at that price point. Unfortunately, NVIDIA has been slowly creeping up its prices and pricing out anyone who wasn't previously able to afford the mid to high end. I believe all of NVIDIA's GPUs on this day and age are priced at a mid-level. They've got nothing for the low end that is worth buying at least. So for that reason, I have to give this one a clear win to AMD. You can tell me if you disagree. So guys, in summary, AMD dominates the budget end in my opinion. If you're really looking to maximize the money you're spending to get pure raster performance, go for AMD. And honestly, AMD is still widely utilized, widely available. You can usually buy AMD GPU quite easily. They have good options at every price point outside of the absolute top end. You won't go wrong with AMD. You won't regret it, hopefully, in my opinion, you won't regret it. NVIDIA, unfortunately, does beat them in almost every other category. And the reason is because NVIDIA is just owning a lot of good technologies, especially their focus on RTX, which is the ray tracing kind of element of things. It's the future, and a lot of games are implementing it. Even a lot of consoles are implementing it. Now, what allows AMD to kind of remain relevant is the fact that they kind of own a lot of the console technology. I believe AMD do make all the GPUs for the major consoles, except the Switch. So for that reason, AMD will just be relevant no matter what. But when it comes to just pure power, NVIDIA's at the top. NVIDIA dominates and they know it. And unfortunately, they can afford to dominate. They can probably undercut AMD if AMD ever try and compete properly, and AMD knows that. So essentially, business-wise, they're both playing a game of chicken, and guess who loses? We do. So just remember that. In my opinion, the 2024 battle for GPUs has been won by NVIDIA. Hopefully next year we can see some victories for AMD. I don't think at the top end they'll really compete, but hopefully at the mid to low end, they're gonna give us options that we just cannot refuse. And that's really what I wanna see for AMD. I don't want this, you get slightly more value for money, just a minor amount, but you're losing out on RTX or ray tracing, or you're losing out on DLSS. I want better performance at a significantly lower price, to the point where it's silly to spend that money to get the NVIDIA product if NVIDIA really want to be defeated in this game. Right now, that NVIDIA knight on the horseback is chopping down the AMD infantryman, and it's not looking good. It's really not looking good. Yes guys, it's Dark Purple Shadow here. Please hit the like button. Please make sure you comment your opinions. I want to hear them. I engage with everything I can, and try and subscribe if you enjoy the content too. More insights coming soon. Tech, gaming, whatever, I'm down.